This is Desmond Johnson on the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast, here on the Bleav Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals. Do you believe? If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate the show on iTunes. We're available in your favorite directories: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Luminary, and TuneIn. You can also find us at Bleav.com and at Bleav Podcasts on Twitter. And welcome into a preview Thursday edition of the Carolina Panthers Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network. Desmond Johnson, Jonathan Stewart, Schuyler, Callihan in the house for you to get you ready for Panthers versus Cardinals, 4:05 kickoff this Sunday on Fox. We'll give you all the latest there, some news and notes with the Panthers from this past week. We'll give you an injury update on one Mr. Christian McCaffrey, a couple other players too. We'll give you some updates on as well. And since it's Thursday, it's Tell 'em Why You Mad Thursday, so we'll get into that as well. Each of us has something that we want to get off our chest. We do it every Thursday afternoon for you. Shout out to the Bleav Podcast Network at Bleav Networks and at Bleav Sports. You can follow us or any of the 31 other NFL teams that now have a podcast on the Bleav Network, catching on the SiriusXM app or SiriusXM Radio. I think Bleav has a channel that's just running these episodes now back to back 24/7. So you can actually listen to multiple Bleav NFL podcasts as we go through this right now. And there's an NFL player attached to each Bleav podcast. Before we get into everything with Carolina Panthers and preview this game, let's talk about our sponsors over at Bet Online. Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports contest events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BLEAV50, BLEAV50, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. And where we start is some info. Schuyler just came back from Panthers practice. The biggest news, of course, Christian McCaffrey popping up on the injury report again. What's the latest on Christian McCaffrey, Schuyler? And I think he has like a thigh injury. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, they listed him with the thigh. He was did not participate in practice the first 2 days, or Wednesday and Thursday. He did show up at practice today. It was regular in his regular jersey, no red jersey, no green jersey, or anything like that. So he was limited. From the portion that we got to see, really wasn't much. He was playing catch, kind of just standing there. Then he did a couple of vertical sprints, nothing very telling. So we'll see what happens. He's actually speaking right now to the media. So I had to run home and get some stuff done, so I wasn't able to stick around. But I would expect him to probably play. How much, I don't know. I think the weather too. Matt kind of brushed it off and said that the weather's not going to play much of a decision unless it was like a snow game. But I think at the end of the day, you've got to be very careful, especially with a guy that's had a lot of injuries the past 2 years. If the weather is going to be as bad or maybe worse than people expect, then I would be very cautious with him.
I would think by Sunday that, and our thoughts, of course, with everyone that's in the path of Hurricane Ian. I think all three of us are within the path of it. You guys are down into the Charlotte area. I'm in the Triad, the Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point area. We're going to see it with tropical storm force winds probably in the next 6 to 10 hours. I would think it's going to start coming through here. So definitely our thoughts and prayers with everyone that's within that. Please seek safety if you can. Definitely get out of the way of the storm. It's a very large storm that's already reformed into a Category 1 in the Atlantic. You mentioned too, Schuyler, Laviska Shenault is on the injury report as well, and I hadn't seen that yet. What's going on with him?
Yeah, he has let me see if I can find it back here on my thing. He has a hamstring, officially questionable for the game. They feel pretty decent about him, but if he's unable to go, we'll probably see Chuba back on kick return, and Shi Smith maybe gets a couple of opportunities too. But that's going to be a big loss, I think, more than people expect, because I think they really want to increase his reps and his workload on offense as a receiver. So we'll see what happens. I don't think – I don't know. Maybe this is a good question for Stu. when you play a 4 o'clock game compared to a 1 o'clock game, how much does that make a difference if a guy's a game time decision? Like, does the extra 3 hours actually help, or does it not even matter?
That's a great question.
It does help. You have to think about the mental scope of it all, right? You wake up in the morning, you have a whole morning to move your body around, get the blood moving, get your mental focus on what you got to do. No, it helps for sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys haven't taken hits for half of your life. When you wake up in the morning, I'm pretty sure you scoot to the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
Depends on the day. Depends on the day. Yeah.
Especially you, Desmond. I know your back be hurting a little bit.
I can hear it right now. Y'all can probably hear it.
But so I mean, I think just the natural way our bodies are. When you wake up in the morning, you kind of have an extra sense of, awareness that, man, I got to get my body going. Whereas, if you have, an extra 3 hours, you have some time. So the mental prep is one thing. But I mean, if you're really, really injured, really doesn't make a difference, So I think, from what I hear, Christian, with a thigh bruise, you're not going to practice throughout the week, mainly because you don't want to re-aggravate your thigh. You can accidentally run into someone, you can accidentally fall down, and you might have a minor setback because of it. So I can understand why he's sitting out of practice for those reasons. My instincts tell me that he will play. This is a meaningful game. And so LaVisca, if it's a hamstring soft tissue thing, I think if it's something that he's like feeling tight or whatever, you got to take the necessary steps to make sure that he doesn't do something to limit his chances of playing. So if a guy like that is saying, "Hey, my hamstring's a little tight," the head coach better be thinking, okay, if you're feeling a little tight, we need to gear off this week on practice. Just make sure you're mentally in it, because we want to utilize you on Sunday, especially after this past Sunday.
I played linebacker and tight end back in my days. Like, I didn't have the ball in my hands all that much. Did you ever have any thigh injuries, and like how much does it like affect you as a runner?
Oh, thigh bruises, boy, man, I've had a lot of them, but that's also why I wore huge thigh pads when I played. Everybody was going. I couldn't understand why some guys would wear the tiny thigh pads or no thigh pads.
They're crazy.
I wore the biggest thigh pads possible because I've had my share of thigh bruises, and you're able to play through them to a certain extent. It's just one of those things where if you're playing in a game and you definitely get a helmet to your thigh where you bruised, you're coming out of the game for a couple plays. So, but and the good thing is they're not traveling, so he doesn't have to be on a plane of any of that nature, because when you're on a plane traveling with the thigh bruise, those things can actually end up being worse off. So
I'm trying to remember when it happened in the game, because I don't remember a play where McCaffrey looked hobbled or something.
Yeah, Matt didn't even know, because we asked about it today, and he's like, I don't think that they ever told me a specific moment or play when it happened. So,
and knowing McCaffrey, he might have been like, it might have happened. He didn't tell anybody, at first.
It could have happened in the first quarter, and we'll never know. All that
and
especially all the adrenaline. All the adrenaline pumping throughout a game. I mean, you wouldn't know those types of injuries have occurred until after you settle down anyways. So,
well, let me ask both of you guys this then, because let's just say McCaffrey's limited on Sunday instead of completely out of the game. I would imagine if he was at practice today with no jersey on, that he's going to be available in some form on Friday, but probably not, 100%, which means you've got Donta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard available to lift the load a little bit. which guy would you want to see get more snaps? Because Foreman kind of came in with the reputation from last year of kind of carrying the Titans while Derrick Henry was out. So we were kind of geeked to have him here, and we really haven't seen him that much. And then Hubbard gets the snaps, but they're spotty. So, and we've seen him last year, so we kind of have an idea of how he can run the ball, but we haven't really seen him run behind this line. If you had to choose between those two guys, which one do you want to see get more reps?
I'll let Stu go first.
I'll say I want to see Donta. I want to see Donta Foreman get some reps and see him carry the ball. Because I mean, last year, like you said, for the Titans, he looked really, really good. I mean, at times I was like, oh, dang, Derrick Henry's back in the game, but but it was him. And so I definitely want to see what he can do. And just kind of, I mean, we know what Chuba can do. And I think either one would be able to spell McCaffrey, but I just want to see them utilize that backfield a little bit more, creative, in the sense that every time Chuba's in there, we know that he's running the ball.
Right.
We need to switch some of that up, and maybe having Donta Foreman come in, maybe that's a good opportunity for them to switch things up.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Scott.
I think a by committee approach is probably what's going to happen, or whoever gets the hot hand, certain things like that. I think if you get late into the game where maybe you have a lead, you probably want Deontay Foreman in the game so he can get you those extra yards, convert third downs, and stay on the field. But to me, man, it's tough because I liked what I saw to Deontay in preseason and training camp. I loved what I saw last year. I think me and Desmond talked about it when he was going on that stretch run where he was starting games. And I was like, man, this dude looks like a starting running back. He runs like a starting running back, just runs hard. But I want to see Chuba because last year he kind of got thrown into the fire as a rookie. He really wasn't ready for that situation. And he had some things he still was trying to work on. He was still kind of getting back from that ankle injury that he had in college. Contact balance was kind of a problem. Wasn't very good as a pass protector, not really good catching the ball out of the backfield. Those are things that he worked on this offseason. And I talked to him about it a lot during training camp. And he's like, I'm focusing on becoming a complete back. And though it's very limited, but what we saw those two runs last week, he had contact balance. If you remember, he almost fell to the ground.
Yeah, he had the hand on the ground, picked himself back up.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a good run. Really, really good run.
So I want to see at least 15 carries from Chuba. I want to see at least 10 to 12 from Deontay. And heck, I mean, probably even more. If the weather's bad, that's going to even lead into it more. But as much as the passing game struggled, I'd just run the ball 100 times. I mean,
follow the same plan you did last week, because that plan that they did last week, that you can use that for any team in the NFL. Come out running the ball. Yeah, come out running the ball. Let the defense play on fire. If it is still, if the elements are still kind of dictating how you play this game, it falls right into Carolina's plans, because I think Arizona wants to throw the ball like a lot. So if it is that way or still windy or something, use what you have to your advantage. It's clear our offensive line is more of a run block line than a pass protecting line. So lean into your strengths. I don't know if they did it by accident last week or if they decided, hey, this is what we should be doing. Let's do it. I need to see it again. So last week they came out with a statement, handed McCaffrey the first couple of times, kind of set the mentality of the team, and that kind of carried over. I'd like to see the same thing. I'm kind of with both of you. I want to see them both, but I'm interested in Foreman. We haven't really seen him. We kind of know what Chuba's going to bring to the table. I do like the fact that he's in his second year and he's a little bit more comfortable with everything, and he seems to have settled into the role of being that second back. But I'd like to see more of Foreman.
I'd like to add yesterday, Deontay's kind of a quiet, reserved guy and hasn't really said much whenever we got the chance to talk to him back in preseason.
That means he's a dog. That means he's a dog.
Yesterday, though, in the locker room, dude was like all energy, like just elated. He was so stoked that we actually like had a crowd forming around his locker yesterday. He's like, man, I ain't used to this. He's like, let's go.
He probably thinks in his head he's going to play because of the McCaffrey stuff. In his mind, he's like, I got to, let's giddy up. I'm getting ready to get out here and make something happen. So
if you haven't, go check out the. Well, I don't think I put it up there yet, but I'll have it up right after the show. I'll put up the interview. He just looked like he was ready to go. He just seemed like he was ready.
Yeah.
Let me throw this out there too. Desmond, we got to apologize for saying Deontay's name wrong.
What was that? No, I said Donta. It's Donta.
I said, is it Donta or Deontay?
I think it's Donta. I thought it was Donta. Donta Foreman. We're really bad with names on the Bleav in podcast. We are horrible.
Man, listen, we know who you are though. So don't
player 23. We're going to have to discard
Deontay, I watched you play. Don't take it personal. I just bad with names, man.
Hold on, man. I'm gonna Google this before we go.
I'm not a politician. I'm not a politician.
Don't feel bad.
I think it's Deonta Foreman. D'Onta.
Don't feel bad. The last 3 years I've been calling Stanley Thomas Oliver Stanley, or spelling it as Stanley. I didn't realize that it had a second T in there. It's Stantley.
Oh
Thomas.
wow, man! Oh yeah, there it is, right there on ESPN. Stanley.
Totally glanced over that. Yeah,
I think it's Deonta. Is it Deonta? Man, you got to find this out. You're in the locker room, Scott. You got to just ask him straight up.
Man,
like,
go ask him.
It's Deonta.
We do the Bleav podcast. We keep saying your name. We're afraid we're saying it wrong. Please pronounce it for us so I can take it back to the crew.
It's Deontay. We asked him. I think Joe asked him the first day what it was. He said it was Deontay.
Okay, so I've been saying Donta.
Yeah,
so I've been saying
don't worry, man. Just apologize.
Yeah, my bad, man. I feel like every week I'm gonna apologize for something with the Panthers. I probably should put that in our tell them why you mad. I got something different though for this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
It's Thursday, so you know how we do at the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast. Tell them why you mad Thursday. Then we'll get in our Panthers Cardinals prediction for Sunday. In our group chat, you guys were talking like you got something set already. I was coming out of a high school football game. All high school football games got moved to Thursday night because of Hurricane Ian. And actually, my kids are running around the house right now because they canceled school up here too for the day, and it hasn't even got up here yet. So I can only imagine what it's like further south from where I am. But which one of you guys want to go first on tell them why you mad?
I'll go ahead and speak up, man. Listen, Miami Dolphins.
Tell them why you mad.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
The Miami Dolphins organization needs to be investigated. Now, 4 games after you have your franchise quarterback, leader, talent, human being, he has an injury that is on film where his head hits the ground. I don't know what protocol they went through for him to be back in that game, but it wasn't right. I think sometimes we get so caught into protocols and policy and rules and whatnot to where, I mean, you can look at any rule, any policy, any protocol and point out things that are wrong, right? So at some point, we got to look at this concussion protocol and say, hey, a little bit of like mindfulness and a little bit of like, treating people like human beings needs to be put into this process too. Like, there's no way that he went through a concussion protocol. He followed a script, and so did the team. And you got to be able to, at the end of the day, protect the players from themselves too. And what happens is you got guys that the fundamental thought and belief is that you don't want to let your team down. You don't want to let the fans down. Like, this is your brain we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are so in our heads as it is as athletes. If you feel like, oh, my body, my knees are moving, my ankles are good, my body feels good, my head's a little foggy, but hey, sometimes that happens. I feel like I can go.
Yeah.
Like, that's the mentality of a player. You got to be able to protect the players from themselves. And I don't know what needs to really happen, but there needs to be a legitimate, agency that is out there, set apart from the team, set apart from the NFL, set apart from the players, that are making some types of decision for these guys. And
Scott.
he shouldn't have been playing last night. I mean,
before I even get to Schuyler, because I didn't see the play because I was calling a football game, and I'll probably go back and look at it here in just a bit. I saw the stills on Twitter, people posting pictures and stuff, and just kind of describing what happened. And I did see the aftermath of his hit last week when he got up and was trying to walk off and stumbled to the ground. I was like, man, he needs to get out of the game. And I think he came back in that game, didn't he? Before it was over.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
The Dolphins got some explaining to do, and hopefully Tua is all right. I think the last thing I heard on the radio coming back from the game I was at last night was that he did have feeling in all of his extremities, the rolling of a head and neck injury, but we'll see how long it takes before Tua is back on the field. And on one aspect, I get it because Miami's like, oh, everybody's talking about us. We're undefeated. You know, we haven't been here in a while. Tua wants to play. The whole player mentality, like you just said, Stu. But on the other hand, like you also just said, you know, player safety's got to come first. So it's a tricky situation. We'll see what happens with Miami. And
there's too much confusion as far as, you know, what lines to follow. There's too much confusion and it needs to be cleaned up. There's too much talking and not enough money and thought going into this. To me, last week's game, there's no way he should be playing in that game. There's no way he should be playing 4 days after that game. Everyone in the whole entire world saw that play and said to themselves, how is he playing still?
Yeah. See, another problem is how many people were saying that before that play happened. I think a lot of it's in hindsight, like, oh, he shouldn't have been playing. But if he got through that game unscathed, I don't think anybody would even be.
I think everyone and their mama. When I saw the play, I'm like, oh, you want to know what's wrong? When I saw that play and I saw him go back in, I said, oh, typical NFL.
Oh, you mean from last week when he got
last week? Week.
I meant like
I said to myself,
when he was playing that was only 4 days. They were playing on a short week on top of it. So,
but the thought process is, oh, typical NFL and typical whoever's in that organization that wants him to play.
Yeah. I mean, how long is the concussion protocol? Isn't it even like 5-6 day thing anyway? Usually,
I'm not sure anymore.
That's why I'm saying he didn't go through any protocol for a concussion. He went.
They didn't even enter him in it. I thought it was a week.
He went through a back. He went through a back and ankle protocol.
Yeah, that is not what was wrong with with Tua. So we'll. Good thing is he seems like he's going to be all right. Seems like it wasn't.
God bless.
Yeah,
bless him for that.
Luckily, so hopefully it's a lesson for the rest of the NFL teams that saw that happen last night and can, you know, make sure that it happened with their players, be a little bit more responsible. Schuyler, tell them why you mad, son.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
So I don't know if we brought this up before on here or not, but it's going to go along with the player safety. Why do we still have turf fields? I don't understand.
I'm here for this. Yes.
Because
let's go.
2 years ago, I was like, I was on the other side. I was like, why do we still have grass fields? Like the turf just looks nice. It's easy to keep up with. Players supposedly feel like they play faster on it. When I played on turf, I thought I played faster. Don't know if that's actually true or not. Probably not. But then I started watching all these injuries go down, right? And we're seeing it almost weekly now where guys are tearing their ACLs and MCLs and all these other things. It's getting to the point where it's almost dangerous to even step foot and play a game, an NFL game, or even a college game on turf field. I don't know why they do this. It's not like the NFL is lacking for money to keep up with a grass field. Major League Baseball is probably, I don't know, what would you guys say, the third most popular sport in North America right now? And
I guess NFL and college football, and then I guess. Well, no, actually, I don't know. It might be lower than that.
Professional. So
professional.
NFL,
okay,
NFL, NBA, MLB, right?
Yeah, I'll give you that.
MLB, the third most popular sport right now, can afford to keep up pristine condition with grass playing surfaces. Why is the NFL not able to? I don't understand that. These are guys' livelihoods. I
think what's happening is that you're seeing stadiums turn into event spaces, right? So
that's a problem.
And so I think that's what the that's how you make stadiums more profitable, by having events, concerts, and all those things, which is good for cities, right? Really good for cities, and really good for, just keeping, a city thriving, especially when you have sports teams that are doing well. And I mean, it just makes everything more active. But I'm with you. I mean, you look at the Arizona Cardinals stadium, right?
Oh, yeah.
They have roll in grass. They water and get the sunshine of their grass outside and roll that puppy back in when it's time to play football.
I think Vegas does that too.
What in the
Yeah, I
world's the
mean,
point of doing that? Don't they have retractable roofs? Can't they just grow it in the stadium and then
but they understand. I mean, someone understands both concepts of the stadium can house events and it needs to have grass fields. They thought that through before they built it and before they found a spot to build it. And I think, going forward, I think those are things that people need to take into consideration when it comes to building these stadiums.
Stu, what's the worst turf you've ever played on?
Oh, the New Orleans Saints turf.
Oof. Superdome.
The Superdome.
Does it even feel like grass? Like,
nah, man.
Does it feel like you're playing on grass when you get tackled on turf?
Feels like a rug.
I don't think that would feel good. Like, tackled on a rug for 3 hours.
The way my feet, like, I showed up on injury reports all the time, and mainly because my feet just were sore. So, like, hey, coach, I ain't got it today. I'm not making cuts. I'm not jumping. I can't do that, especially the older you get, man. The impact that you have on that surface, there's no spring, there's no give. Just think about your joints, man. Every time that you're making a cut, every time you're getting tackled and piled up on, that turf does not do any good.
Just think what surface under the turf too.
Yeah, it's cement. I mean, you're playing on cement pretty much. Like, I mean, we have a arena football up here in the summer. And they're playing, of course, on basically concrete with a carpet rolled out. And then some of the high schools up here are starting to try to switch their stuff to turf. And I'm just like, no, don't do it. Nah. Like, don't start these kids on this path early where they're playing on turf fields. You actually see it a lot down in Charlotte. There's a couple of Charlotte schools that were built in the past 10 years. And the football field was built first. And then they built the school around it. And the field itself is like a turf type of field. The only time I can remember being on the field and running around a couple years back, my wife and her family surprised me with a trip to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton. And then, they've got that turf field outside of it. So you can kind of run around, take pictures and whatnot. So me and my kid was a toddler at the time. And we were running around the field and I'm realizing there's these little, I guess it's supposed to simulate dirt, but it's like little black pellets or whatever that's in the turf, I guess, to give you like a grip. And the only thing I could think of is, what if that gets in your eye? Like, what if, because you're getting people get tackled, they're on the ground, they're doing this and that. Like, what if it gets because it was just
it does get stuck in your eye every now and then.
It didn't feel like it's little rubber pellets that are just in the turf. Speaking of high school, I got something that I'm mad about that happened last night.
Yo, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
So I was telling you guys when I was driving back, I'm not gonna put the teams' names out there or anything for any part of this segment because it is high school and it's more of an overlying thing. I'm getting sick and tired of seeing and hearing stories, especially the past year and a half, of fights breaking out at high school games, youth football games, Pee Wee, Pop Warner games. I have seen in the past 2 years, my company, Tobacco Road Sports Radio, we do a lot of high school football broadcasts, and we do it across the state of North Carolina. And last year there was an incident. We were in Charlotte actually doing a game. A local team from up here was down there playing one of the top teams in the state. And there was a situation where at the end of the game, for no reason, a guy drives by with some huge police type pistol and just starts shooting in the air, like behind the stadium. So you can hear it. I can hear it. I'm on the air and I had to go back and listen to the broadcast. You can hear the gunshots in the broadcast as we're doing the call. And we're just seeing kids running and all this whole scene develops of just chaos, basically. Last night, I'm calling a game. Again, I won't go into who I'm calling, but if anybody knows me and they're locally, they know who I was calling for. And in the game itself, same thing happens. Fourth quarter, home team's getting blown out. Their stand's empty. We're thinking they're just leaving early. Turns out it's a bunch of younger kids that just didn't want to sit for the game. Something had been circulating on social media or whatever. I should have known when I got there because it felt like a military presence when I got to the school. There was so many sheriffs in like military gear walking around, and I just thought it was a big game, 2 undefeated teams. That's why they're here. Turns out there was something going on social media amongst these kids that were circling around. So people kind of had an idea of what was going on or what might happen. So when fourth quarter got there and the game was out of hand, a lot of the home fans left. They didn't want to be there for whatever was going to happen after. The other kids remained, didn't leave. They're just mingling around the parking lot while the game's going on. I'm in a live call. I look over and I see a huge sea of people just fighting over by the concession, like 40 kids like fighting. And as they're doing that, you just see this plume of pepper spray come out across the crowd, and these kids just scatter or whatever, and it just turns into just chaos again with these kids fighting. My point being, it feels like, and I've said this before to my wife and to other people, school administrators, it feels like the year and a half these kids were out of school because of COVID mentally messed up a lot of kids, and we're not really confronting what is going on with the kids from high school level all the way down to elementary school. It's not natural to go to kindergarten on Zoom. It's not natural to expect these kids to just bounce back and everything's normal. They've been affected by this, and I think a lot of the stuff we're seeing in these games, these crowd fights and things that are going on. Something happened in Greensboro 2 weeks ago that was similar. And I woke up this morning and found out another school over across town in Winston-Salem had the same thing happen in their parking lot, where a massive fight broke out during the football game. So it's going to get to the point where they're going to start taking football away from us. So y'all gotta figure this out. Parents, kids, figure this out. Don't come to the football game looking to do this. This is not, WrestleMania or whatever. This isn't back in the day, we're all going to meet at Eric's house and you're going to fight in the front yard. Like, it's unnecessary, and like you're ruining it for a lot of kids like that aren't involved in that kind of stuff.
I mean, what you're seeing is the socialization piece that has been missing for these kids for that time. It's huge in their development. How do you handle confrontation? Like, how do you cope? What we're going to see from this COVID and lockdown and stuff is, how do people cope? How do kids cope? Did they learn how to cope with someone saying, I'm not your friend? I mean, obviously that's very low totem pole or whatever, but you got to learn how to deal with things, and just which at the end of the day means it is what it is. Deal with it, but deal with it with the right way.
I think that's the problem, that they don't know how to deal with failure. Like we grew up, knowing that the world's not going to, not everybody in the world's going to like you.
Yeah.
You might not be the most popular. It's not all like what you see on TV or social media. I think that's warped their minds in terms of what it's supposed to be.
The instant gratification. Instant gratification, instant friendships, instant best friends, instant appreciation. That thing doesn't happen overnight.
It's all for likes. I see people all the time, especially I'm around these high schools so much. I'll see kids sitting beside each other, texting each other. You know what I mean? Like right beside each other or facing the text each other, having a conversation. I'm just like, wow, this is where we've gotten to with everything. And I say all this, and I've got all this stuff that I do that's going across the same platforms that I can't do half the stuff I do without those platforms too. So it's a double-edged sword. I know we're running up against it here. We got to get our predictions in for this game and keys to it. Let's start with you, Schuyler, real quick here. Cardinals, Panthers, 4:05 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The Cardinals are 1-2. They've won the only road game they've been on. Panthers are 1-2 as well. They're 1-1 at home. This is the third home game in the past 4 weeks for the Carolina Panthers. It feels like a must-win too. All of them are must-wins. Schuyler, what is the key to this game for a Panthers victory Monday?
I think it's about having a balanced approach offensively. And the reason I say is everyone's going to look at the numbers for Arizona's defense and just immediately think you can throw the ball on them. I don't think that's the case. When you go back and look at who they've played, Kansas City Chiefs, that's Patrick Mahomes. Las Vegas Raiders, Derek Carr. Last week with the Rams, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp. Like, they've played legit offenses. Teams are going to give up yards. They're going to give up points against those guys. So I don't think you can just sit back, especially with how they've thrown the ball the first 3 games. You can't just sit here and say this is the week that they're going to figure things out passing the ball. So you got to be a little bit of balanced offense. And I think defensively, it's kind of just been what you've done the last 2 weeks. Don't need to change anything. I don't think there's any need for wholesale changes. Just continue to do what you do. Maybe don't give up, 6 explosive plays. But outside of that, harp on trying to get turnovers again, create extra possessions, take care of itself. I'll go with the prediction.
What's your prediction?
I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I'm going to say 26-23, something like that.
I would fall in line with how when we do lose, that would so you're so it's kind of one of those we're gonna lose last second field goal type things again.
Yeah, something like that. I just think at the end of the day, Carolina's offense has so much to go.
I don't like the prediction.
Kyler Murray's in that offense, even without DeAndre Hopkins, is a lot to deal with, and they're just
now, Schuyler. I'm about to jump through this camera and take your hat off and smack you with it.
I'm like, what you doing, man? You can't pick the cards. What's happening here?
Man, Desmond, let's kick him off, man. We'll talk about the rest of this.
Make it right, Stu. Like, what's going on here? What's the key to Panther victory?
First of all, I'm gonna give my prediction.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got to wash mine out.
Yeah. Gotta make it.
I'm gonna say 24-10. 24-10.
17 or less. 17 or less, baby.
This is the game where we have to start fast. Because we're playing a team that has a history of not starting fast. And I think partly their problem is coaching, Cardinals.
Yeah.
Definitely coaching. When you have your quarterback throwing 58 times in a game, something ain't going. Something not working in the play calling, which means, to my point, he's making the right throws. He's on the run. That's one of the keys too, is actually find that quarterback and chase him down and don't get tired. if you're tired, tap out and bring somebody else in that can chase him down, because he's going to be running, and that's one of his strengths, right? And so throwing on the run and all that, making plays happen, extending it. But I think you want to put them in a position to where he's throwing the ball 58 times.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is stopping the run. James Conner is still a dog. I don't care what they got going on. I don't care what they've done the first 3 games. But if you let him get physical, let him, get that engine steaming, he will run and run for a lot of yards. So I think stopping the run will help us maintain the offensive coordinator to where he's calling some bull crap. So that's my keys to the game is really on defense. Yeah, throw the ball 58 times. Just don't give up any explosive plays. Stop the run, and on offense, given the weather, run that rock. Okay, run the rock. If they're sitting back there in their cover 2 and zone or whatever it is, hit those flat 7s, keep those safeties back there, and then set it up for the underneath routes, right? Underneath routes, get some check downs. I want to see more check downs this week with the backs. Get them involved. Some motions. Get the receivers, flying across the ball, so that way the middle, the linebacker core is kind of confused and, wanting to follow the play, I guess, and get them confused a little bit, and that will set up the run, obviously, in the play action. So
I'm looking at the line and everything here. It looks like the weather won't be a factor. They're saying game time weather is going to be 76 degrees and sunny in Charlotte on Sunday. So I guess they're saying that Ian will be pushed out of North Carolina by then. So I don't think it'll be them playing in conditions like
they'll run the ball.
Yeah, run the ball. I still want them to run the ball. Although I will say the Cardinals, you mentioned it earlier about the teams they played, they're still giving up 287 yards in the air. Their defense. And I don't know if that's so much who they played a lot of that might have been Kansas City because they lost 44-21 week 1 to Pat Mahomes. I think he threw like 6 touchdowns or something nuts in that game. I would, for me, honestly, we're both averaging the same exact points per game, 20.7. The Cards are giving up a lot more than we are, 29 a game. And again, that's slanted a lot because of that Kansas City score. I would try to get more of these wide receivers involved this week. Yes, depending on the run game first and foremost, but we still haven't seen Rashard Higgins very much. I don't know where Terrence Marshall Jr. is. Like, it's getting to the point where I'm like, are they going to trade this dude? Like, was he even supposed to be here? Because it feels like he was a Joe Brady pick. And now that Joe Brady's not here, he's just been lost in the shuffle. And I think he was hurt during training camp, and that pushed him down the depth chart. But really, it feels like Shi Smith is the third wide receiver, and Laviska Shenault is like right there now too. Where does that leave Terrence Marshall? Like, I need to see him if he's going to be on this roster. Do something. Like, he showed a lot of promise last year. And Rashard Higgins, there's no reason why Rashard Higgins should not be in this rotation. He actually has rapport with Baker Mayfield. Like, if any of the wide receivers would be one that Baker would be the most comfortable with, it's Higgins. So get him in the game. Get him involved. Hopefully McCaffrey's all right, because it is a completely different offense for Carolina when he's not out there. Even if he just has to go out there and be a 98 NBA Finals Scottie Pippen decoy, where he is just like, he can't do nothing, but Mike is just like, hey, just be out here, because if you're not out here, you look completely different than if you're not out here.
I think with like the receivers that we got, DJ Moore, Laviska Shenault, get those guys running some jet sweeps. Get those guys motioning across the backfield, because what that's going to do is it's going to create more space, at the line of scrimmage for guys to run. And when you open things up, it actually limits access to your back of getting hit and beat up on and all those types of things. So I'm not too high on jet sweeps because it takes away carries from the running backs. But in this case, going into this game, this is an opportunity for the offensive coordinator to get really creative in what he wants to do to protect his guy, but still utilize his guy and still stay on board with who your identity is, which we talked about earlier.
How creative can Ben McAdoo be? That's the question, because I don't know if he is very creative. They did do that weird triple reverse thing last week that I didn't expect to happen.
We don't got to do anything too crazy. Just do a jet sweep. Have them boys going crazy fast and take that handoff.
For Ben McAdoo, that's on the wild. We're going to try this trick play. Jet sweep to the left.
Because do it when JJ Watt's in there too. Because he's going to just be standing at the line of scrimmage waiting to bat a ball down.
That's facts. That's huge fact. He's actually listed he's questionable on the injury report for Arizona. I'd imagine he's going to be in. AJ Green is doubtful. James Conner's questionable as well. Rondell Moore and Greg Dortch, name that people up here, Wake Forest fans, would recognize. He's questionable as well. So we're going to get out of here. I didn't get my prediction. Carolina, I think it's going to follow the path of like last week, where I think the defense is really going to show up and harass Kyler most of the day. 24-13 Carolina. I'm going to go with it. They got to take advantage of all these home games. Like, I can't keep giving these home games away. Like, 3 in the first 4. Like, we got 2-2 is best case scenario, just the way we lost those first 2 games. I'll feel a whole lot better about the season after Sunday if we win and we're 2-2, and the 2 losses were by a combined 5 points on 2 field goals late in the fourth quarter. That's a completely different outlook than what Arizona will be looking at, where they got blasted by Kansas City. They lose to the Rams, and then they come to Carolina and lose. That's a different outlook altogether. So I'm hoping we can do the same thing, still following the 17-point and under rule that we apparently have in the Matt Rule era, that they can't score 17 points. And actually the defense must have heard that, because they're only allowing 19. So there you go. So we'll see if they can keep this going through the rest of the year. We're out of here. Panthers, Cardinals, 4:05 p.m. kickoff on Fox in Charlotte. Weather's supposed to be great. Get out there if you can. We'll recap it on Monday. For Jonathan Stewart, for Schuyler Callihan, I'm Desmond Johnson. You've been listening to the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast here on the Bleav Podcast Network, presented by Bet Online. Keep pounding.